Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. This is part 2 of the GTX 580 Lightning Extreme repair attempt, and I have made progress. Originally I wanted to record me soldering on all the different things, but yeah, I sort of didn't. I just went to work, and I have made progress. So this card is not fully working yet, but if you plug this in and have a different card in the system, this one does pick up in GPU-Z, and it does display like how much memory it has, which usually only it does when it installs the driver. Like when you don't have the driver installed, it should show memory as 0 megabytes, but it does show memory as 3 gigabytes, which is what the Lightning Extreme has. That's the special thing about it. It has double the memory you get on a normal 580. So yeah, that's basically the progress, and I do want to go through what I've did basically, and yeah, I don't know, like, well, there's things that are not done yet. That could be why it's not putting out an image, but is running, or it could be something unrelated, and I have yet to figure it out. So, by the way, this is just on the Tech9 Fat LN2 pod, just because I didn't want to go through mounting the entire heatsink, and I just needed something to have it run for a bit on the desktop to see if it picks up in GPU-Z, which it does. So I just strapped the LN2 pod to it. And yeah, so originally the card came in missing a whole bunch of components and having a lot of damage on this backside. The front side is pretty much mostly okay. There wasn't any damage there. I just noticed that this is a lot shinier than my other Lightnings, because someone coated this in something, presumably because this card was run cold before. So someone did some extreme overclocking with this, and then, I don't know, maybe threw it at something? Like, the damage is basically the only way I could explain the damage this card had is someone had to throw this, or like threw it in a box when they were moving and, well, didn't think about that there isn't a backplate here and things are delicate and get ripped off. So basically this transistor was missing, this capacitor was missing, this capacitor was missing. You're seeing these two capacitors are bigger than the other capacitors that I used here. So far, I see all the VRM phases as running because all of these LEDs have power and should run. They don't all turn on, they don't actually light up, but I've heard that these LEDs tend to die. So I've just checked with the multimeter if they all get power, and well, they do. But yeah, swapping these out for proper sized capacitors might actually help. Like, I should probably do that at some point. But even with 10 phases, this card is, like, as long as it runs, I'm okay. Then once it runs, I can do other things. So the BIOS switch was missing, so I soldered on a switch. This capacitor was missing, but there's still a whole bunch of flux there. I got some new flux, and I don't like it. The MTech stuff I had, which is this stuff, which I'm running out of currently, it's much better. The new stuff I got, because the MTech stuff is very expensive, it leaves things like this, and it smells very bad, and I think it might actually not be no clean. Whatever. It's been working for now. Then some of the bypass capacitors on the PCI Express slot were missing. 4 of them, I soldered those back on. A bunch of capacitors and resistors in this area were missing. I also soldered all of those back on. I was getting them from some of these. Now these are remains of my GTX 580 and 480 E-powers. And most of the circuitry behind the core between GTX 580s is the same. So yeah, I just took the components from these things and put them onto this card. And well, that worked, except for one thing. There is a missing resistor right here, and it doesn't look like it's missing there, but that's just because I tinned the pads. There is supposed to be a resistor there. It's supposed to be at 175 ohms. Currently, between those 2 points, I have about 500 ohms. That might be why it's not displaying a picture. But the thing is, like, it's at the PCI Express interface. I thought it would just not get picked up at all if that was, like, critical. Like, I can't see if this causes issues. Like, obviously, there's supposed to be a resistor there, and there's not. But I would think that if this, like, this is next to the PCI Express, like, why would this cause the card not to display an image, but get recognized by the system? So, I don't really know. Then there were also a couple capacitors and resistors missing in this area, and this was very annoying to solder back on, but I did manage it. There's only one problem, and I think now I need some tweezers to point at things. This resistor right here, this one in the middle. On other cards, and I have another GTX 580 Lightning here, that's a normal Lightning, not an extreme, so that has 1.5 gigs. Which I'm going to get into why that's important later, or might be important later. So basically, this resistor on the other Lightning and also the other 580 PCB remains is 40 ohms. On this card it is 10 kilo ohms. Now I've been told in this area the resistors set memory termination settings and other memory settings. So this card being a 3 gig and all the other cards I'm comparing to are 1.5 gig, might mean that this is supposed to be 10 kilo ohms, it might mean nothing and this is supposed to be 40. That might be why it's not displaying, like, if the memory is, like, it's obviously stable enough to, like, run the card, but it might cause some, like, memory is weird. Memory can have a lot of issues that you don't notice until you notice them. Like, yeah. So I don't know. Like, the resistor's connected and completely. I pulled this resistor from one of the other 580 boards. It could just be that maybe I did a smooth brain and pulled the wrong resistor and put it on here. So I could pull it back off, get another one of those resistors from another one of the remainder boards, and then see if the resistance changes. I could do that. I'm probably gonna do that if I'm, like... Basically what I'm gonna do with this resistor, because this set of resistors does not exist on any other GTX 580 PCB. It only exists on the Lightning PCB. And, well, I don't have any other dead Lightnings that I can, like, cannibalize. So I have to find out the resistance. Like, I was told by, like... Well, I could measure it myself, but I was told by other people who have Lightning Extremes that there's supposed to be 175 ohms here, and I have 500. So what I could do is just solder a potentiometer to it and then turn until I get my 175, then measure what resistance the potentiometer is set to, and then I know what resistor I need to put there. It's just very annoying to do, and these solder points are very, very small, so that's why I haven't done it yet. And then there's supposed to be a switch right here, and it's just missing. Like, the insert is like, that's what it's supposed to look like, and then the inner part is missing. I don't know what this switch missing means. I don't think it should affect anything. I just can't use the Extreme Cool 1 and Extreme Cool 2 function anymore of this card. Which, I mean, if I need it, I'm just gonna shorten the pads manually, like, yeah. And this card is very... I was holding this up for so long. This LN2 port is heavy. I'm estimating it to be about 3 kilograms. This is heavy, annoying to hold up. But yeah. So that's hardware-wise what I've done. My soldering is still pretty crap, especially because I was using this super small soldering iron tip to solder on things, because you can't expect me to use this tip, which is what I usually use, because the small tip just doesn't have enough, like, thermal capacity to heat up a big power plane. Like, it's barely enough to solder small wires, and then actually the only usable thing that small tip is for is, like, specifically soldering these very small SMD components. So yeah. Yeah, so that's hardware-wise. And yeah, so still stuff to do. My soldering is still crap. But I mean, it gets recognized by GPU-Z, and it is displaying the memory capacity, which, like, before it wasn't. Then the driver on the 780 initialized, then it was still showing a 0, and then it made the Windows like did-do-leap sound when you like plug something in, and the screen went black for a second, and then it showed 3 GB on this card. So I'm pretty certain that this card was installing the driver and like not crashing. So this card pretty much, if I had another 3 gig 580, I'm pretty sure I could run this SLI with that other card, but I don't have another 3 gig, so this kind of sucks. Like, my test bench does have an iGPU. I could maybe try the thing where like you use your iGPU as pass-through, because if the card can interface with the system, it can probably just send a display signal through the iGPU to my screen. From what I know, I don't know if it actually works. Like, maybe just the port itself. I tried all the ports, but maybe just like some display drive circuitry is dead, and maybe that's because of the unfinished work here, maybe that's because of something else. But if it's getting recognized by the system, yeah, I could maybe try that pass-through thing and try running things on it that way. But I won't have access to NVIDIA control panel, sadly. Oh, well, if I have another NVIDIA card in the system and plug a cable into that one, then yeah, I would have access to NVIDIA. So, yeah. Then there's the software side. So, software side, this is a bit interesting. So I've made a community post showing the GPU-Z window of this card. If you look closely and if you know what a GTX 580 should look like, you're going to notice some things. So a GTX 580 usually has 512 cores. This one shows having 384, which is, if I'm correct, the amount of cores that a 560 Ti has. So that's weird. Then it's showing the memory speed as 1500 MHz, which in MS Afterburner would be 3 GHz, which is what a 680 comes at, not a 580. A 580 comes 2 GHz or like, oh, actually, yeah, it's pretty much 2 GHz stock for 580s, so 1 GHz in GPU-Z. So this memory is running 50% faster than it should out of the box. Now that could be because they're using different memory modules here, like they're using 2 gigabit memory modules, not 1 gigabit memory modules. And this card has 2 gigabit MFR, and this 680 over here also has 2 gigabit MFR. If they are the same speed bin, I didn't check. Well, they are perfectly capable of running 3 gigahertz like that, but I'm not aware. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've not seen 580 Lightning Extremes run faster than 2 gigahertz stock. Because I do remember seeing someone overclock an LX and they did like get to 2500, not 3000. And that's stock, like that's weird. Then I think it's also displaying the wrong amount of ROPs and TMUs. It is detecting the GF110 as a core. But yeah, like weird things with the card are happening. Now, that could maybe be because someone flashed the BIOS on this. Maybe. Like, because the card was insulated with this waterproof layer, I am assuming someone had this Sub-Zero, and maybe that someone messed with the BIOS. Maybe that's why everything is messed up. Like, maybe they flashed like a 560 Ti BIOS and like manually changed the memory clock or something. I do have a manual BIOS reflash clamp, and I think I could just flash it. Well, if this has the right subsystem ID for 580 LX. I do have the stock 580 LX BIOS. I could just try flashing the BIOS. Maybe that's why. Like, maybe also the BIOS is why it's not putting out an image. Like, there's a lot of unknowns here. So, yeah. I guess I'm just gonna try that BIOS flash. Like, gonna try to flash the stock 580 LX BIOS on it. Maybe that's gonna fix the issue. Maybe that's gonna make the card just work. Like, I don't know how important this resistor is, or if that resistor has the correct value. I just know it gets picked up by the system. Speaking of getting picked up by the system, the 680 I've shown, yeah, my very bad solution to the dead PEX rail did get an upgrade. This previously had this little regulator on it, which is rated for 4 amps, which apparently 4 amps is not enough to power a PEX rail on the GTX 680 because this regulator was cutting out, and sometimes it just wouldn't run, and sometimes it made weird noises, like weird sounds, like high-pitched something. Now I've used this one, which is rated for 20 amps, and now the card works reliably. It's just barely enough to fit into the top slot. Like, literally, it's right up against the memory. Like, this barely fits, but at least this works now. But yeah, this video is about the 580. I just wanted to mention the 680 because I think I'm gonna run it some more. Like, this is the good 680, the 1500 MHz 680, not the card I'm trying to... Well, I guess I could show that one too. I haven't shown that yet. This is the 680 that I was previously complaining about not working anymore. So you can see the E-power has been reattached. It is now closer to the solder points on the board. It has been flipped 90 degrees and it has a lot more connections. As far as I can tell, the core E-power on this thing is perfectly fine. There is like 1 or 2 connections more I could make, but as far as core power goes, this is pretty much as good as I'm gonna get it. Now memory power, which it was previously running fine with like 2 ground, 2 VMem, but well, sure, yeah, there could be more. Yeah, I was talking about how this memory module is probably dead, because like the card runs fine as soon as it uses more than 700-ish megabytes, then the card becomes very unstable. Now, I am assuming that the card fills up the memory like this, and which means that this chip would be used between 768 and 1024 megabytes, exactly where the card becomes unstable. And there was some solder bridging these 2 resistors. Now, like, these 2 resistors. Now, I did get a very helpful comment from Tech Cemetery under the video where I complained about it, where he said, there's an external 120 ohm resistor for GDDR5. I did get the datasheet for this specific memory module, and yes, it also is supposed to have a 120 ohm resistor. Sadly, that resistor is this one right next to it, and it is at 120 ohms. So the resistor is fine. Like, basically what Tech Cemetery was saying, that sometimes the cards get these issues when this resistor is not having the 120 ohms it's supposed to have, but yeah, this is still at 120, and these 2 resistors that were bridged are supposed to be 40 ohms, and they are 40 ohms. So, yeah, I might have to swap that memory chip, which I tried desoldering another memory chip from another card that is compatible, and, well, more or less successfully. I have to... On one side, the solder contacts don't look that great. Can you focus, please? Camera? Like, the contacts don't look that great, but I am going to try to swap memory modules. And if I pull it off successfully, I'm gonna try it on this card. And this is from a GTX... Yeah, this is from a 780. From a dead 780 that I have for parts. These are the same speed bin, are they? No, they're actually not. This one is a different speed bin, but like, both the 680 and the 780 have 3 GHz memory stock, but this one just has a different... Actually, I don't know if that's the speed bin. Well, yeah, it's both 2 gigabit Hynix AFR. That's the thing that matters, and they're both from cards that run 3 GHz memory stock. So yeah, I might swap this memory module onto there. But yeah, so if you want to see it, that's what the power looks like for core. In the benchmarks that it was running, which is basically Ice Storm and nothing else, VDrew voltage drop, like the old ePower had about 150 millivolts voltage drop. This one so far is, I think, 40. But I didn't really measure that much. I just did a quick measurement. I think it was 40, so it's a lot better. But, well, we are about to touch 20 minutes, so yeah, I don't think I have much to add here. So thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and until next time, goodbye.